Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us for the 22nd edition of the World Sustainable Summit. It's India's premier platform for deliberating the discourse around sustainability and climate change. My name is Shireen Pandita, and I will be your MC for today's thematic session. It will be my great privilege to host this fantastic line of speakers who are all experts and great leaders in their respective fields for this session on urban public transportation aiding net zero emission targets. We will have with us Mr. Shri Prakash, who is a distinguished fellow here at the Energy and Resources Institute. He will be joining us in a few minutes. Before that, I will also like to introduce a very fantastic line of panelists we have here today with us. I would like to welcome Professor Geetam Tiwari, who will also be the moderator for the session. Geetam Tiwari is a professor and head, TRIP Center, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. She doesn't need any introduction as such. I would request you, ma'am, to please join us on the dais. Thank you. Can we have a loud round of applause, please? We also have with us Mr. T Surya Kiran, Executive Director, Associate of State Road Transport Undertakings. He'll also be joining us in a while. Further, we'll go to Mr. Akash Pasi. He is the President. Welcome, sir. Can we have a round of applause, please? Mr. Akash Pasi is the President, Bus Division and E-Mobility, Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles. We also have with us Ms. Harpreet Kaur Bajaj, Principal Transport Economist, Rambol. Can we have you please on the stage? Thank you. I would also like to invite Ms. Nitika Krishan, Key Expert, EU-funded project. Can we have you on stage, ma'am? Thank you. We have a small presentation to set the context. So I would request Sharif Kamar, the area convener and fellow at the Energy and Resources Institute, to please share the presentation with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and also to the speakers and the moderator, ma'am. Thank you so much. Shri Prakash sir is running late. We have also received regret from Mr. Ashish Kundra, who's the Commissioner of Transport, Delhi government. And we will be having, panel discussion straight away. But before that, we'll set the context. So my job is to set the context today for the speakers to discuss on, and also some of the topics that they would be bringing on to the table and discussion today. So we are here to talk on the urban public transportation and how and what is the role that urban public transport could play in the overall ambition of net zero emission target. And so without further ado, I'll just jump into the presentation. So what is the context here? So we do see that, we are seeing congestion across Indian cities, and it's not only about Delhi or Bangalore or Mumbai or Pune, but it is happening in all other tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. And clearly there is earlier we used to have a distinction between, the peak hours and non-peak hours, but particularly in Delhi or in metropolitan cities, that difference is kind of vanishing. You have peak hours throughout the day, 24/7. This is a study done by TomTom, and which particularly shows how the cities are behaving in terms of congestion, and there are particularly delays, and we are spending more time on road right now than ever before. So that's the same case, and in the top 10 we have two cities which is not to be proud of course, Bangalore, Pune. We also have Mr. Shri Prakash sir. Thank you, sir. So Bangalore and Pune, of course, are there, but there are other two cities in top 30, New Delhi and Mumbai. And the thing is that, over the years, the time that we are, spending on road has increased. And as you can see, in all, 11 days by the people in Bangalore are spent on road due to traffic congestion in a year. And similar would be the numbers for Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, etc. So that's there. So that's one context to the discussion. The second is, of course, the air pollution debate and discussion around it. We are in February. We are still witnessing, spike in air pollution right now as we speak. It's touching 300, 350 on a daily basis. And here again, Mumbai is one of the cities we do not expect that, being a coastal city. But in the month of February, in fact, Mumbai, had more air pollution than Delhi. So that was the case there. And of course, TERI and IIT Kanpur and ARAI did a study on air pollution and the relation with the transport sector. Transport sector is one of the key contributors, apart from road dust and construction related emissions, to the city's air pollution. Now, we do not have much discussion on this particular topic, and this is emerging as one of the key areas. We have seen in European countries about consideration about noise pollution when certain deliveries are done. So delivery agencies need to consider that into their delivery mechanism and system as well. But in Indian cities, noise pollution is a key factor in terms of leading to some of the health related issues as well. And we do see in some of the areas that we also witness, I've been traveling in public transport and on road, and everybody is as well. If you are in an elevated corridor network under the metro, the voice and the noise just gets escalated. What's the solution to that is something we also need to think about as we go. We do talk about private vehicles polluting in terms of polluting and congesting the road, three-wheelers, two-wheelers, four-wheelers. But it's also about the noise that they also generate in terms of honking in cities and in Indian cities particularly, which for public transport that is also one of the things or benefits of public transport, that it does not create, we do not see buses honking, at least in Delhi or Mumbai or other cities. So that's one other context. And this slide is basically and this is something related to the topic of discussion today in terms of net zero emissions and the emission reduction. And we do see the truck sector and the HDV sector contribute in terms of overall fuel consumption in the country. This is latest study done by PPAC. And on the right side, you see a scenario analysis that TERI and other agencies did some 4 years back, where we looked into the modal shift scenario of increased share of public transport in passenger segment, as also as the railways, if we have more railways and suburban railways carrying more passengers there. And we do, this is an estimate done by TERI, but we have other estimates as well. And this is one of the most optimistic scenarios and numbers that we see in terms of reduction of CO2 emissions if we have better public transport or increased share of public transport in the overall passenger transportation mix. Now, transport decarbonization, of course, this is something that it's there and people are aware of right now. Just to put in front of everyone, it needs 175-meter wide road for so many number of cars to carry 50,000 people. 35-meter road for buses if buses are used, and 9-meter track for metro if metro is there. We'll come to each of the topics in the following subsequent slides. And some of the numbers on the left side is basically from a study done for NTDPC, National Transport Decarbonization Development Committee, Policy Committee report. And we see that the role of metro and other railways and buses are clearly lower in terms of per capita emissions. What's the challenge here in the terms of fleet strength? This is, the numbers from, and frankly, these numbers haven't changed. If you look at the public bus per thousand population over the last 40 years. And I had opportunity to write a book on this, but on apart from this topic of other as well. But looking at the NTDC 1980 report, we see that these numbers haven't changed over the years. We have, in fact, seen deterioration in terms of public transport availability in terms of passenger carrying capacity. What are the, and this slide is not to say that, financial performance is a key indicator about performance. Public transportation system, like any other public good, should not be driven by profitability agenda or objective. So that's clear. But having said that, there are other issues related to this pie that we are showing, and how do we cater or tackle that is something that we need to understand and work on, and we'll have views from the speakers today. In terms of metro, of course, we heard about buses. In terms of metro, India is seeing a steep surge in metro availability in different cities. Now it's about 18 cities have operational metro systems in the country right now. The current numbers are about 850 odd kilometers across Indian cities. And that there has been a steep rise since 1984 when Kolkata Metro was running. There. Again, managed by railways independently earlier and still today. In terms of suburban railway, if you look at urban city transportation system, we do see that, again, in railways, we have these numbers, and since 2000 there, if you see the numbers right now, of course, the COVID has played a major role in the impact in traffic, but these numbers haven't, come back, at least for the bus transport sector. We do see that numbers are coming back, but for railways particularly, which is a major, in terms of looking at Chennai, Kolkata, Mumbai, and Secunderabad, these numbers are not quite good in terms of, catering to the people there. And it's in fact lower than what it was in 2000. So that's the key message here. What are the challenges? We'll not go into the details, but of course there are challenges which have been discussed in multiple forum, but we'll see how we can discuss this. This is the last slide, and leave the the speakers and the moderator ma'am also to kind of facilitate in terms of capturing these discussion points apart from others that she might have. I'll hand it over to Shri Prakash sir for his opening, and then perhaps after sir, it could be handed over to Gita ma'am. Ma'am, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Sharif. In fact, I must apologize for the late coming here. I was in a meeting, and then meeting lasted, it was to end at 1 o'clock, but ended at 2 o'clock. So that is why I could not come in time. Now this particular topic which we have chosen today, the public transport systems and particularly buses, all of us have been using these buses as a mode of transportation. Say 20 years back, it was the main mode of the transportation. Now gradually it is getting replaced, because number of buses, I find that they have not increased. And in one city, which is consisting of roughly about 7 million, when we are working on the transport strategy for that particular city, we found that number of buses is less than 1,000. Now, as a city of 7 million, and that does not have the 1,000 buses. Now, many cities are also adding the BRTs, and then, but if adding the BRT may be easier, but number of buses appears to be more difficult. I don't know why. One reason could be that the financial, as Sharif mentioned in his presentation, that one reason could be that financial condition of the transport corporations and as well as the state governments is not very sound, and they may not be in position to add the buses. So that could be one reason. But there can be always the different models that can be adopted, which ensures that the number of buses and in during the Jawaharlal Nehru urban renewal system, we have found that number of buses have increased in certain cities. But as of now, it appears to be stagnant. Now, sometimes, that when we say that bus undertakings are not making money, actually, is it a commercial function or it is a service? Personally, I feel that it is service, that, and then for the government has to provide or has to have some certain model which ensures that the people are able to travel by public buses. And public buses should also include the shuttles and mini buses. In many cases, the mini buses and shuttles are much more efficient in carrying the people from point to point. And in Calcutta, almost about 40, 50 years ago, the mini buses which were introduced at that time, because there was a terrible congestion at that time. And then those mini buses, I believe they are still surviving today after 50 years. Now, I travel from Gurgaon to Delhi, and I find that if the shuttles are also, start working, coming from Noida to Delhi or between Gurgaon to Delhi or Faridabad to Delhi, I think it will be a big boon, because many people would give up the cars and then they start traveling by the shuttles. Now, somehow those shuttles are not being considered unless by the government, the agencies are undertaking. So this and one thing is that even the fares which are not resulting into the profits of the undertakings, etc., and they are deliberately kept low. But still, that there is a large number of people and marginalized sections, they are still not able to afford even those fares, which are very low as compared to. And that is why I welcome the Delhi government when they announced that women would be allowed to travel free. Now, this is a big relief, for the working people, working women to travel at least free. I mean, but they can also pay some marginal the fares also. But I think that we should ensure that the the bus fares remain within a limit, that, and so that all the people are able to access the bus service. Those who can pay, we can provide the luxurious the travel also by buses and from point to point. And personally, I believe that if we spend more money on the procurement of the buses and provision of buses in the city, it will be much more beneficial than providing a metro rail. Because metro rail also, the experience so far has shown that the metro fares are also the out of reach for a large number of population, the city population. And if the buses are also not increasing, and then only the people are asked to travel by metro, I don't think that it will be a big, it will be any relief to the people. And this is one of the reason I feel that the number of the two-wheelers are going up, because those who are not able to afford the four-wheelers, they are going for the two-wheelers. And two-wheelers are also, that is becoming essential today, because it increases their job opportunities. They can travel longer distances to get to work. So with these few words, that now Professor Geetam Tiwari is there, and she is I think the most distinguished researcher today in India. And I see many of her students now occupying the important positions everywhere in the research organizations and also in the academics. Then she knows much more than me about the bus transportation, and she has worked a lot. And now hand over to Professor Geetam Tiwari, and then she would initiate the panel discussion.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I'd like to thank TERI for organizing this session and inviting me to moderate it. So, the basic context, Sharif, you showed some numbers, but I want to highlight a few issues and then we just get into discussion mode. And maybe we should flash the questions you want us to address. So that would be better to reminder to us that one of those discussion points we could pick up. But before we get into it, it's a reminder, I think most of us already know that about 1/3 of Indian population is in urban areas, but within that, almost 30 to 35% are in very small cities, which do not have any organized public transport system. But that doesn't mean that they are not moving. And they do not have bus systems, or metro is of course not practical at all there, but also normal your 12-meter bus is also not very feasible there because the trip characteristics are different. Majority trips are less than 5 kilometers. Almost 90% of the roads are in the category of collector roads. That means the right of way is quite limited. So there is a case for much smaller buses. And right now, many of the North Indian cities, rickshaws or three-wheelers have converted to electric, the battery-based electric rickshaws. But perhaps there is a case to do a little bit of organization there and bring in this mix, smaller fleet, which doesn't exist very easily. But again, then second question is vehicle ownership. You already mentioned that overall in India, car ownership is about 16 to 20%, but 20% households may own cars because after 2011, we do not have census numbers, so we are making a guess. And for two-wheelers, the household, about 65% of the households in India own two-wheelers. And we do have some better idea from Delhi. In last few years, actually, the percentage of households owning cars has not been increasing very much, but two-wheeler has seen exponential rise. So now when we talk about buses, all surveys show that people who are using buses also own two-wheelers. So the moment bus fleet goes down or the service quality comes down, we are going to have modal shifts. And that is what we are seeing in Delhi. Last year, I think Delhi was only working with about 3,500 buses. You talked about 7 million city. We are talking about 21 million city. So that is a very much a cause of concern. Of course, Mr. Kundra is not here. Otherwise, he would have given us new numbers. They have placed orders for electric buses. And by the end of this year, we are hoping to see about 5,000. And then there is a plan to increase it. But I do want us to consider, is it only about numbers of buses? Is it about just fleet size? And second question is it also about technology? Yes, moving from CNG or diesel to electric is very much beneficial for local air pollution. But couple of things we have to keep in mind. Just by increasing fleet, or even for that matter, making it free, am I inviting enough people? The modal shares that we need to meet the challenge about which the whole session is net zero. Net zero is all about having appropriate modal shifts. And at the moment, we are seeing modal shifts very fast in the negative direction. It's very quickly moving towards two-wheelers. Not so much about metro also. And actually metro and bus story is very easy to understand. In Delhi, out of 800 kilometers of national kilometers of metro, 400 is in Delhi. And after that, we have only 10% trips on metro. So we really have to, and of course, bus numbers will come down because we are only have 3,500 buses. So we could have increased the buses and we could have retained the share. But I think with rising incomes, with high two-wheeler ownership, retaining modal shifts to buses or attracting more people to buses needs much more than that. And I think that is why we should see what role STUs can play. And of course, all STUs are still dealing with a lot of financing issues. Capital investment for buses are not available. Cities are not able to support any STUs, or even state governments are not able to support. So there are a lot of these questions we should explore. So maybe we can have, I will stop here. And what I would like to do is that I will request my panelists, maybe we can just go in the order we are sitting. You may pick up one of the discussion points listed here, or some of the other new discussion points which we may have raised, Mr. Shri Prakash may have raised, or whatever else you may consider important. And maybe you can make your initial statement about that, and then we can have. And if we have questions from the floor later, maybe can you collect the questions and just give it to me in writing, so we can distribute some chits. Yes, so Nikita, you have been introduced already, so I don't need to introduce you again. But yes, please go ahead with your initial statement.
Thank you, ma'am. It's an honor to share the dais with you because I've been watching you for so many years and have been following your work as well. So thank you for this opportunity to TERI as well as to EU for putting this panel together. I would like to talk about the first aspect. While we've covered a lot of topics with respect to the urban population, the modal shift, the preferences of users to get on to a particular mode of transport. As part of our project, which is the India-EU Urban Partnership Project, we have been propagating a use of technology as part of urban mobility scenario. And we have been promulgating, or rather putting certain stakeholders together. If, let's say, all the users and the commuters have the necessary modal options at their hand and have the necessary wherewithal
to all India.
To undertake the journeys according to their preferences, can mobility as a service, as a technological intervention be introduced by which you could have choice, you could have interoperability, you could have multiple stakeholders at a common platform, and plus you could provide gender and inclusivity as a common theme underlying the entire development. I understand that there are several stalwarts on this panel who can talk about different aspects, whether it is the STUs plus the public transport and the international perspective being important. We thought that if as a common theme, mobility as a service can be an enabler which could provide the users the option at the fingertips or in the palm of their hand, and could also provide them with necessary options across different formats, can that serve and also aid in contributing to meeting with some of the emission targets?
So basically you mean a common platform where I'm starting my journey and I have option of choosing metro versus buses versus IPT versus my personal mode.
Yes, on a software mode. And it could also...
But don't you think Google already exists? A lot of things Google is already giving.
Information is available through Google, ma'am. But the thing is that we need to streamline, because where we are lacking is the first mile connectivity and the last mile connectivity. We need to bring the last mile service providers in the form of whether they are cooperatives or any other aspect by which they could have a say in the system and also generate a livelihood for themselves. It could also, like we were talking about, give certain incentives to a particular gender in forms of pricing mechanism, dynamic pricing, and all this could be gathered, and the necessary decision making for a trip management could be made right at the comfort of your premises.
Okay, thank you. So we'll come back to it later, but
sure.
Yes, Starkash Pasi.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's my pleasure to share the dice with the important experts we have here today. As it's commenced in the beginning, I think I'll just first set the context on my behalf of whatever I say and what makes me say that. So I represent Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles here. It's a joint venture between Volvo Group, 50-50 joint venture between Volvo Group and Eicher Motors. And with this, we are highly focused on the public transport segment. Hopefully, when this financial year ends, we will have about 75,000 trucks and buses added onto the Indian roads end of this financial year, for this financial year. We also are highly focused on public transport by offering vehicles on diesel, on CNG, and now on electric. And already with talk of the town with it, working with ethanol and hydrogen IC engines and many other technologies like LNG, etc., which the government is looking at. My comments here are based on my 25 plus years of experience with public transport industry, always as an OEM, having had the pleasure then 22 years back to start and introduce Volvo buses into India, and also for a period about 10 to 12 years, managing the global markets and operations for Volvo buses around the world, for Volvo based out of Sweden. So I think that having traveled the world and then being back here now, there is a lot in me as a person of Indian origin to do here and achieve here. Because there are many places in the world where there's a lot of success with public transport. You spoke of one of them. If you go to any key bustling, successful city in the world today, you find that you can do what you said. Go into the app, put in the detail of where you want to go and what modes of transport will take you there, be it based on metro or on buses or even on the water transport. Yeah. So, and of course, India is very different. I think we need to bring in the three-wheeler also into the picture, because end of the day, whatever transport it is, as long as it doesn't offer last mile connectivity, the whole purpose fails. Some of my comments as an OEM are that I think we all know that India is the second largest bus market of the world. We will probably in a couple of months be the largest population in the world. Not that we are proud of it, but that is what will happen. And then, unfortunately, we also seem to be the most unrepresented or the lowest when it comes to all the key countries in the world in terms of number of buses available for versus per capita or the number of people. So there is an immense opportunity for public transport in India. And I think that is something we all agree to. In opening comments, I'd like to first say that the government is doing a lot of things right now, especially over the last couple of years with the electrics coming on and the government waking up to the congestion and the zero emission planning which we need to have. There are a lot of good initiatives which have been taken. But of course, it's always, we are always trying to catch the tail, because as a country, we have very fast development and that really hampers whatever we plan. That is not good enough, because you shared that from rural areas, most of the people either don't have transport or because the facilities are not right, they are moving into urban areas. Having lived in Bangalore, when you could get in one place to another in 20 minutes and you do the same thing in 3 hours today, you don't feel so good about it. Now I live in Delhi, and as a child, I have grown up here and seeing if you want to get from Gurgaon to Noida, one of the evenings, if you can do it before 2 hours, 50 minutes, I've not been able to break that record. I've tried it a number of times. So there's certainly a challenge available here, even if a lot of good work is happening. So I leave my context now by mentioning 4, 5, 6 key things which I see. We talk a lot about buses. We talk about public transport. It's good to talk about, is it really in focus? When you have metro, it's a project of 6 to 10,000 crores. Everybody works around it. There's an integrated authority. Does that happen on buses? No. That's A. B, if you buy a Mercedes or a Volvo SUV, you pay 20% GST on it. If you, for a poor man, buy a bus to transport from one location to another, you pay 20% GST or tax on it. Yeah. Same for a person versus public transport. If you give a bus which meets the needs of people, because we talked about last mile connectivity, we talked of making buses in a way that they attract people from their cars and two-wheelers onto public transport. So if you make a product as an OEM, and we do that as Volvo and Eicher, let's say is a low flow bus, is fully electric, has all the nice features, safety systems, internet or information on real time for people to move, more aggregates come into a bus. That means the more aggregates you add, the more taxes you pay. So about 42% of the bus, one way or the other, is direct or indirect taxes to the authorities, be it central government or state government. Defense, finance, etc., are centrally driven subjects. Public transport is very important, but it's still a center-driven, it's a state-driven subject. You know? So every state decides for itself, and then you have a border like you have between two countries. And I know with all your experience in APSRTC with the permits, etc., between states, you know that more than me. You know? Tender norms. We must have the best. We must make it good for people, but the cheapest bus should be the one which will rule the roost. Yeah. Should it not be the bus which produces the least noise? Should it not be the bus which can have the safest things? Should it not be a bus which is more prone for giving information to people to reach from one destination to another in a comfortable, safe and a faster way, rather than the price or the cost of the bus? So I have an endless list, but then there are also a lot of good things which are happening, which we'll come to later. But I think that as an OEM, these are some of the key things which you grapple with when you try to make public transport efficient and try to meet the last mile connectivity objective, which is where today in most of the places it's failing. And the last question then, there are many more, but I don't want to leave this one out. We already have cities which are congested. Should we then keep on putting our time and attention there? Which is, I think, extremely important. But we all say that 50% of the cities in the next 10 to 15 years will be new cities coming over, especially in a developing country like India. Can we make a change there instead of just being here? So can we start at those places the right way? Which I believe also there are good initiatives, but probably not the best as yet. So a lot of questions, and it's no negativity here, but it's just out of our experience as an OEM, even if there are a lot of good things happening, what are the some things which are contradictory for achieving what we all wish to achieve here and discuss here today? Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, actually, many of the issues that you raised really rings a bell. You know, a few years back when we were doing very detailed work with cities and states. And first question we started looking at that cities started saying that the OEMs or the manufacturers were giving different quotation for the similar specifications to different cities. And we tried to understand that issue, and some of it was related to that some cities have better reliability of pavement, some cities do not, and then some cities have their own very specific new specifications. So I think at that time we had a lot of discussion with ASRTU also, that can we not come up at, because you are managing all STUs, is it not possible to have a common specification? And basically for different city sizes, we need different kinds of technology and buses. Is it not possible to do that at your level? And then encourage cities and specific STUs to take up. But I don't think we really succeeded. That discussion didn't go very far. However, this still remains a big issue. And, there is a whole lot of discussion at that time was that not really trusting manufacturers, that why are they giving us different quotations? And then you try and understand from manufacturers' perspective that when the demand is not certain, are we really going to change our manufacturing process for something which would suddenly get terminated? So there are all these governance issues, and that really brings the other issue that Akash you mentioned, state versus center. This remains a state subject, but for example, motor vehicle specifications is coming centrally, right? That is a center, MORTH and ARAI is working on it. So is it not possible to do for buses also and create that more dependable market? So yes, your initial comments and.
First of all, thank you for inviting me here to TERI, and great to be along amongst the August gathering on the stage and of the dais also. Mostly, I think I'd have to repeat what Mr. Akash said actually. He has raised so many points about public transport. The one which I like the most is why only urban? Why not public transport all over the country? We just look at the numbers. Right now, we have about 148,000 buses operated by public transit bodies, that is government related, STUs otherwise. And the numbers have come down from past many number of years, 10, 12 years, the numbers have been continuously coming down. That means the public transport itself is not growing. The culture, the mindset, the government's resolve, all this have to be thought about again. When the mindset is not there, when the policy making authorities don't have the mindset to encourage public transport overall, then there's a big issue around. Then what are we talking about? I mean, reducing emissions everywhere, not only in cities, everywhere, in every part of the country. We need to have the resolve happening that public transport must go up. Everybody speaks like it's 40 cars is equal to one bus. What 60 motorbikes is equal to one bus on the road. And we all know that, yes, without public transport, it's very difficult to control the emissions in the country. Then again, you just talk about cities alone. There are about 40 cities or towns have a reasonable public transport system, ranging from 15 buses in some of the towns and cities to almost 7,000 odd buses. The biggies are like Delhi has 7,000 odd buses. Bangalore has about 6,000 odd buses. Best has, that's Mumbai has quite a number of buses. And the ownership patterns also differ. Some of them are owned by municipalities, controlled by MOVA. Some of them are owned by STU bodies, again, regulated by MOTH. I'm just trying to draw the, coordination, lack of coordination between the governmental agencies also. And another thing I was just about to say, adding to what Mr. Akash said, was the taxation. The biggest surprise of all, last year, the government goes about increasing the bulk diesel prices. And the bulk diesel price, which all of us have been buying diesel in bulk from a number of years, that's about more than 40, 50 years. Now the bulk diesel price is 138 rupees per liter against retail 100 rupees. There's a 38 rupees difference for public transport. They have to shell out so much more money. Will they ever survive with such kind of money going to only fuel? Anywhere else, any commonsensical proposition would say that, public transport, it should be less than retail. It was less than retail just a year back, or 1.5 years back. this kind of, what do you call, directions point out that somewhere something is not right about public transport. And talking of cities, the municipalities are running buses in most of the towns, now cities, Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. And are they really equipped to do so? Or do they have that managerial abilities, and or somebody is taking care of those too, so that, there'll be an increase in public transport in the cities. In the direction, nothing seems to be happening. I'm not just trying to kind of criticize, and I'm just trying to put everything in perspective. This is what it is in India. So we need a lot of things to happen through different bodies, through different conferences, through different workshops, through different people voicing it. A lot more things should happen. Public transport has to start getting some importance at every level. Everyone knows in cities, there are only 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening real travel happens. That they're normally called crush hours. That's one reason why public transport doesn't go. The crush hours are occupied by students and the regular commuters, and the buses are full. Most of the towns, cities, the bigger cities, if you see at that particular hour, buses are really crowded, and the occupancy is more than 100%. So the common man who wants to pay money and get into the bus doesn't get into the bus during that time, and the rest of the time nobody requires the bus. Under those circumstances, how will the public transport be run? How will it survive? How will it thrive? How will it grow? These are the questions all of us have to ponder over it, guide the present public transit bodies in India to meet those challenges, and encourage all the public transport bodies to grow, increase the number of buses. And the state governments have to really take lead in it, because that's a state subject. And most of this, and recently there was one city, one bigger city in India has reduced 1,000 buses in a month's time in city. That's the government's way of looking at public transport. Why did that happen? Because the cost of operations is so high. The loss-making proposition is so high. They couldn't meet it. Financial constraints, so reduction happens. The cost of operation per kilometer and the earnings per kilometer, there's a huge difference in every city in India. Of course, it's common to in the entire globe. None of the cities in the world make profits. Most of the cities are subsidized elsewhere, unlike India. So systems have to change. There should be a desire to increase public transport, a resolve to do so. And that's how we can focus on larger objectives like net zero emissions. Thank you, ma'am.
So which is that city which has reduced 1,000 buses in 1 month?
Should be. It's okay.
Okay. As researchers, we can always find out.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, you raised some very important issues and we'll come back to it. This whole discussion about understanding public transport as service versus a profitable entity is always a discussion point when it comes to buses. But when we talk about metros, we don't raise this question. Governments are heavily subsidizing metro systems. Even when metro is not giving any social, concessions. There are no concessions for students, for older people, anything. There is no. And yet, their operations are being subsidized. Also, actually, you look at performance of every metro system also. No one is making money. But it's interesting that we are always raising this question when it comes to buses. So we'll come back to this. And yes, then I move to you, Harpreet.
First of all, I would like to thank TERI for inviting me here as a panelist. I would like to take the discussion a bit differently from public transport because a lot has been already said about public transport. So I just want to highlight one thing which, we have studied in the past few years, that transport and mobility are not gender neutral.
So when a transportation system is being planned, do we really look at the gender aspects of it? Do we look at how men and women have a different travel pattern, and do we really cater to the needs of the women who are traveling with children, with pram, or with elder people, or the women traveling with doing grocery shopping and then coming back? Mostly what we have noticed is when men travel, they travel from point A to point B, but what women do is a trip chaining exercise. So which is like, we have to drop the kids, we have to pick the kids, we have to take the prams on the buses, which in India I see it's still a challenge. We do not have the public transport system built in a way which would cater to the need of the women. So as part of being a part of the cycling service line in Ramble India Smart Mobility, I had got an opportunity to work on the green paper called Gender and Mobility, wherein we had done surveys in almost 7 capital cities. Mostly 6 were in Europe, and India was one of them. So as part of that, we really found out that women are the ones who are using public transport more than men, and women are the ones who walk a lot and cycle a lot. But the issue which came up here is the women who are not using public transport, why they are not using public transport. We should raise those concerns which could, attract more women to use. And one of the concern which I came across while I was interviewing the focus group people in Delhi itself was the safety and security of women, and the fear of harassment, which they had to even face while waiting for the public transport. So these are the issues which, they said that before, when it gets dark, we cannot use public transport. We are scared to stand on a bus stop and wait for the buses. So that's the main concern which they raised. Even using the metro line, they said metro is very convenient. It is a cheap mode of transport, and it makes us reach faster our destination. But some of the metro stations are very, dark. They don't have proper lighting, proper street lighting, and they don't have last mile connectivity when they get late in the evening. So this was the thing which they said, that if the better services are provided and these things are rectified, they would still like to use public transport even when it gets dark, and it makes them feel safer and secure. In case of buses, I would say the main concern raised was that if they have a female driver in the buses, they would feel more safe to use the buses, and if they have a dedicated exit for females, and maybe more seats dedicated to the women, which are fixed, and so that they can easily, the women with the child or with the luggage or something, they can get a dedicated seat in the buses. So that made them feel more secure, and they would use public transport more. In terms of getting into the net zero emission target, Ramble is working a lot towards providing sustainable solutions to the clients. And we are in the transport sector, energy sector. We are aiming to reduce our carbon footprint to zero by 2030. And we are looking forward to providing sustainable solutions to the clients, society, and we are doing proper resource management and all. A recent example I would just like to give, when we are talking about, as Mr. Akash said, that we can look at to the cities which are newly being built. So there's a city called Nordhavn, which has been built just across next to Copenhagen, which I recently visited, and I did not even see a single car there. So it is actually built with the notion of making a 5-minute walking city, where all the amenities are there within the 5-minute walking distance. And so I was really amazed that how could I even not notice a single car there? And that has been catered. The transportation is being catered by the by the metro system, below which a cycling highway is being built, so that the cyclists get the all-weather transportation, in which they don't have the fear of getting wet when it is raining or when it is snowing. So that was, a very good example which I saw in the city of Nordhavn, that yes, we can implement into the new cities or the smaller cities where this is possible. So that's all I have to say at this point.
Yeah, I think you bring in a very important new dimension to discussion about gender. And in fact, our census in the last travel census which was done in India showed that more women use buses than men, and more women walk than as compared to men. Men were using more bicycles and more motorized two-wheelers. So when we talk about bus systems and really ignoring it, it is definitely giving less importance to women's trips. And actually, another very important dimension about gender is that it's not about just morning, evening peak hour travel. Non-peak hour travel is equally important because that is when your lot of trip chaining occurs, early morning and middays. So if we are not providing a reliable public transport at that time, again, those people have to then depend on some other mode of transport. So these are all very important issues. And yeah, so at some point, later on in my second round, I'll ask you one short question about, we talk about new cities, but what is going to happen in India? Most of our current cities, which we have about 7,000, are going to grow. So completely greenfield, I'm not sure will have the majority greenfield cities. But yes, in those cities, we do have opportunity to plan our development differently. So our new cities will be of that kind. And many of our small areas are almost 5-minute walking because of our socioeconomic compulsions. When people don't have access to motorized modes, then all activities get organized around that. But we could do it better, and we could, I'll come back to it. So should I just do a short one more round and then start taking questions, right? So, so based on the discussions we just had, so let me come back to Nitika. So you talked about having this common platform. And I said, I mean, partly Google does that. Because if I'm wanting to go from here to any other destination, I do have choices in India and Delhi. It is giving me choice how much time it would take en route by car, by two-wheeler, by three-wheeler, by metro, and by bus. But making it better. And then you talked about last mile connectivity. So again, at least for Delhi, and this would be true for most other Indian cities also, as far as buses are concerned, almost 90 to 95% access trips are by walking. They don't depend on any other mode. And that is true for other end also, egress trips also. Delhi government has introduced, in some places in Dwarka, they have been experimenting with this. They are introducing electric two-wheelers and electric three-wheelers. And they are saying that this would be nice last mile connectivity. But even for metro, majority is 60%, 65% is walking. So when we talk about walking trips, how are these apps going to help, or should we also start demanding something different?
When we are talking about the options available, let's say by a service like Google, it does not onboard, let's say, a payment mechanism. So can we have some kind of an interoperable systems working across different modes of public transport or different long haul transports, which could give you that option? We were talking about being gender sensitive, being inclusive. Can, let's say, a person, an elderly or a person who is taking a trip for a school or for moving with their relatives or with their elderly parents, they could look up the options within the premises of their own residence or any other comfortable zone and make the choice instead of going and finding or waiting at a bus shelter or at any metro station. For that matter, we have in the recent past seen that, like Mr. Pasi was mentioning, it is widely acceptable in Europe as a service which is being utilized by a lot of people. Cities like Bhubaneswar, Kochi have also taken a first step here. And we are talking even in Delhi about a common mobility card. So can this become a way of life? Can this give us the choice of options by which decision making and inclusivity, both with the help of technology, can come at the forefront? So, and also in this, like you mentioned, first mile and last mile connectivity through walk is a major aspect of our urban cities. If I were to look at separately, let's say from class 1 as well as maybe tier 2 and tier 3 cities, in class 1 cities, you yourself mentioned about this experimentation with three-wheelers, electrification. How many of them are on a, let's say in an organized platform. If we saw how the Grameen Seva in Delhi was first became as an enabler, then it was taken aback, and then there were a few regulatory issues. There was a recent notification which came from the government regarding usage of two-wheelers as commercial vehicles. That again has given certain thought processes for the decision makers, that how do we imbibe all this into our day-to-day life, because the complexity of urban transport and urban travel is going to increase. And like you mentioned, that the new cities which are coming up are not going to be greenfield cities. Even if you've seen the recent initiative taken by the government of India on incubation of green cities, they're talking about extension of existing cities as green cities. So it's going to be more or less a brownfield development rather than a greenfield development. But the option of developing more sustainable transportation options does are available in those green fields and cities which are going to come up. So in those aspects, can we introduce certain sustainable and technology friendly options by which more options and more people could be brought onto the public transport platform? Because at the end of the day, if we are talking about meeting with the net zero emission targets, public transport is going to play a very vital role. And for that, information regarding public transport to come on a common platform at the touch of your fingertips is something which should be an acceptable factor in near future.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yes, that's absolutely important what you mentioned. But I'll flag another issue here.
Sure.
That if on my app I can see the buses, when the bus is going to arrive, but of course, if the bus does not have dedicated path, its reliability is low. So I will know it is not going to arrive in next 20 minutes and I would go and use some other mode. So I think that challenge remains, that how do we make it more reliable? And of course, that proper information to everybody to help us make the right decisions. And then even two-wheeler, yes, Delhi government has also been talking about, and I told you about electrification of two-wheelers. But we have no technology how to make it safe. We can introduce a lot of two-wheelers, and I know what is going to happen as far as SDG 3.6 is concerned. It's a real challenge. So yes, so Akash, I thought I will ask you a couple of questions also based on what you said. So how do we make these more dependable, assured markets for manufacturers, so that you can bring in the latest technology, deliver it, and it's not about just talking about one kind of buses. Given the heterogeneity in our cities, we do need different types. And you were just earlier telling me in Chandigarh you were running smaller buses. And so there is definitely a need for 9 meters and maybe smaller and bigger, and a mix of appropriate fleet. But what would make it attractive for manufacturers to be more, it's right now it seems to be very reactive. If these things are, certain orders are placed, then you start working on it. And then cities start saying that, it's too long, we are not getting our supplies in time. So can it be done differently? What do you think? Is it not working?
Hello. It's like the bus not arriving on time, you said so. Okay, thank you. Yes, I think a lot of things can be done. Challenges remain. In the commercial vehicle industry, or let's say the automobile industry, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, trucks, buses, cars. Bus has the lowest volume annually. So the challenge it brings is that how does a manufacturer make it more efficient? On the other hand, if you look at the number of variants a bus has to offer, that is the highest. Because if I can say state A would want that, let's say Telangana would say that I want the seats facing each other when people are traveling in a bus. Karnataka would say, no, I want everyone to look in front. Kerala will say, I don't need one door, I want two doors. Yeah? So on and so forth. So more or less, every bus made today or a batch made today is a different one. So that in a modern efficient world stops industrialization. So I think one of the ways to do it is get more standardization into the industry. That's a very, very important thing. The second most important thing to be done is, of course, being fully respectful of ASRTU and Mr. Surya Kiran here with his long experience. The state corporations today, in terms of registered number of buses, represents, as he said himself, about 148,000, which is 15% of the bus population of India. 85% of the bus population of India is scattered amongst private operators. If we have to solve a public transport issue, do we have them on the table? So, of course, the good thing is that for past 6-7 years, we now have a BOKI, which is represents 24,000 bus operators and taxi operators in India. So there is at least a body we can speak to. Could we have to move up the specifications, get more standardizations? Today, when you are in any city in India, in 9 out of 10 cases, if not 9.9, the bus stations, which are government properties, are only accessible to state transport undertaking buses. But most of the people also travel by private transport. What do they do when they move from one city to another, or from one point in the city to a sub-city 30 kilometers away? They go to some point where by the roadside or in front of a shop, they get to turn into buses. Can it be like Mexico? Can it be like Iran? I mean, these are, I pick up examples, not picking up from developed places, because our challenges, I fully understand, are much more dynamic and much different from what is happening at many other places in the world. But Mexico has the population probably same or more than Delhi. Iran has the same challenge. They have bus stations which are used by every bus. There's a timing, a bus comes in, goes out. There's excellent parking there. I know that we talked about metro. I think, I hope most of us know that the air transport to all small cities in India is heavily subsidized. So airlines get a heavy subsidy for that. So I think there are lots of good things which can be done. So if we have common bus platforms, if we bring in the whole bus community out into this discussions, we try to have some commonality between a central spec rather than state spec. That will help bus manufacturers to plan better. The other is, of course, the change in technology. And here I don't blame the government, because we all, change is the only constant, as they say. So even if I every morning, evening only talk of electric buses, my volume in electric buses is probably 1% or less. 99% comes from diesel or CNG. So can we have a roadmap for technology which is laid out much better? Because today I'm expected to give the best diesel, which is Bharat Stage 6. Europe is now shifting to Euro 7 by 2027, which means that we would like to remain in norms with them. We will try to do exactly the same thing. So very heavy investments going into diesel, while it should also go into electric, while it should also go into CNG, while it should also go into ethanol fuel. So a little more long-term approach or area-specific approach. I think then to get better public transport systems, I think as manufacturers, we don't have a problem. Today, as Volvo or Eicher brand produce buses from 5 meters to 15 meters for school segment, for staff segment, for intercity segment, which is long distance, for public transport, low floor, medium floor, high floor, route permit buses. So I think all options are available, but it gets very scattered. Of course, not as scattered as in most of the countries around the world are small. So we still have a large population. But I think that when we push public transport, we are also equally pushing cars. If I live in Delhi and not traveling, 4 days I live in Gurgaon, 3 days, including the weekend, I live in Faridabad. When I go from Gurgaon to Faridabad and back, every morning or evening, there are thousands of cars which are just rushing. But you will find one or two buses. I've never found three buses on the 40-45 kilometer route. So can we think differently? Can we give the bus industry an industry status? Because today, if I have to set up a factory, I get the money to buy the land, to put up the building, to put up the machines, to employ the people, and to have working capital from the bank. If today an STU or a private operator has to buy a bus, not in case of STU, but especially 85% of the buses, if a private operator has to buy a bus, it is same like buying a car or a two-wheeler. If you want to have 5 buses, that's, let's say, if it's Volvos, then it's almost 10 crores. He should put his land papers for his farmhouse or his home or whatever else he owns to be able to get the money. So I don't think that everything can be changed, but can we pick up 3-4 key things either on taxation, subsidizing, bus as a service? So I think as all manufacturers, including our competitors and ourselves, we're giving mobility as a service. The buses, if they're running in Chandigarh today or Kerala or electric buses, they're all owned by our mobility services companies. And we give it on a per kilometer basis. We run the buses. We service the buses. We make the buses. And then the government pays on a monthly basis. And that model Delhi uses very well because Delhi has been doing that for 20 years. So in India itself, even if I don't go around the world, there are islands of success, I think, which need to be picked up. If you go to Ahmedabad, it's very good to see a BRT system running, or Hubli Dharwad, a BRT system running, where buses are moving faster, the traffic on the side is moving slower. You picked up Bhubaneswar or Orissa. Do we know that 80% of the buses registered in Orissa are air conditioned? And I remember that 25 years back, as a child, there was a lot of poverty in Orissa. But the government has done it. If you go and see and look at the change in Bhubaneswar, can that be replicated at other places? There are a lot of places where for the old people or for children, there are walkways available inside for women, children, or old people to come in a number of cities. But most of the places it's missing on the bus stations. Can that be done? So I think we don't need to go into everything. The government has the money now. They are taking a lot of things. And I always say now, if the job, like all around the world, of the state transport undertaking is to be a regulator, not an operator. Regulate, let private companies invest on buses, on public stations, on ticketing platforms and apps like you talk about. But just regulate, give them long-term contracts of 5 to 7 years. And not that it's not happening. There are a lot of places already done it. If you go to Madhya Pradesh, if you go to Jharkhand, they don't even have state corporations now. But if such places which are already there can bring a strong regulatory body and demand what they need and pay on time, but demand the service, I think lots of things can happen. So I again say, it's not a Pandora box. There's a lot happening in India. It's a very dynamic environment, but 4 or 5 big key decisions, if we all can request the government to take them, this industry will go somewhere else, and last mile connectivity with all modes of transport will become important.
Yeah, thank you. That is, I mean, you have highlighted really important issues. But every time you said we should talk about taxation, we should talk about centralization and standardization of specifications. The question is, who is this we? Should we be looking at ASRTU for this we, or is it some other we?
No, I can always share an example, and this is 25 years back. So for the city of Bangalore, as a manufacturer, we wanted to introduce a public transport system. So we brought in very well-known, and I'll not go into the names, consultants who worked for almost a year and gave a great plan to put the city on an excellent public transport system as it runs efficiently in many other places in the world. But the first page of the report said that if they have to implement it, they have to talk to 42 agencies. So 42 agencies, if they are one, only then a public transport system can work. And I think it's not the same story today. A lot of things have improved. I have heard that Karnataka has just announced 2 months back, one single body, like in Singapore LTA, Land Transport Authority, or in London. So I think the first thing which needs to be done, put all modal, multimodal transport needs, whether it is metro, bus, cycle, three-wheeler, under one regulatory body. But it will not stop there, because then there will be a body which will be responsible for traffic is separate, for fire systems is separate, for road maintenance is separate. So I think it calls for a change in legislation. And therefore, if there's one body, and I said, don't do it everywhere. Start at 1 or 2 places. Create islands of success. Let people see what success feels like when that happens. And then everyone follows.
Yeah, I think that is what you have said is a major roadblock. Because we have talked about integrated authorities at least for last 20 years. And actually Bangalore Land Authority was established almost 10 years back, I think. 10 years. They have been in place in 10 years. And even for common mobility card. One common mobility card was launched in one of the UMI conferences 2016, I think. But we haven't. It's so yes, but I think the optimistic part of it is that slowly it is getting more attention, and probably we will see it very soon. So, Mr. Surya Kiran, now for you, actually, I had the same question. How ready STU is to deal with this new environment? And especially now that we are seeing a lot of emphasis on electrification.
I'll just begin adding one more thing, ma'am. Can we ever think of controlling the registrations in India, controlling the vehicle population in India? Highways can grow. Probably there is land availability outside the cities, but inside the cities, I don't see road space increasing phenomenally. But the vehicle population increases phenomenally in every part of the country, and the vehicle registrations don't stop. And then the density of vehicle population is going so high, the speeds are really going to come down. If it's going to be Pune this time, Bangalore, or maybe in top 10, we'll have 6 or 7 cities coming soon with such kind of vehicle population explosion, especially in terms of two-wheelers also. Should that happen, then public transport's emphasis will increase, importance will increase, buses will start automatically increasing to fill the gap where we put a cap on the vehicle population in every part of the city and in every part of the country. Apart from that, yeah, what is that going towards electric buses or modernizing the fleet in STUs? The 148,000 buses, how do they look? They look, there are 2,600 electric buses, e-buses right now on the roads, 12,000 CNG buses on the roads. Apart from that, they're all diesel buses ranging from Bharat BS1 to BS6. The BS6 population is just about 3,700 or 4,000 buses at the moment. So, and the age of the fleet, if you observe also, above 10 years, there are about 35,000 buses operating on the roads now. How do we replace them? Increasing number of buses with e-buses is very easy option. Just keep increasing buses and the e-buses come into picture. But how do you replace the existing buses? Along with replacing the existing buses, what do you do with the manpower available who have been in and out with the diesel engines from past 30 years? These are the issues and challenges STUs are facing right now. And like Mr. Akash was saying, the technology problem. Everyone said CNG is the thing for the future. So STUs have gone and taken so many CNG buses, and suddenly now they have to be, they cannot be operated anymore, literally speaking, because the cost of CNG is as equivalent to diesel right now, or more than diesel in some other places in India. In that kind of scenario, like, look at the challenges STUs are facing. Financial constraints are there, technological issues are there. Ma'am is talking about apps and things like that, and the technological state of STUs and most of the public transport bodies on a scale of 1 to 10 is about 4 or 5. Electronic ticket machines are not there in many of the states. Tamil Nadu operates with hand tickets, paper tickets. So these are all have come, they're all kind of part of a legacy from past 15 years, wherein no one has ever looked into public transport or bus public transport with an intent to let it grow. So, but anyway, as I'm only putting them probably the negative side of the most of the time. But the positive side would be that, yes, the order book says we have placed 12,000 e-buses from many parts of the cities in India, and intercity buses are being also sought for e-buses, and many of the manufacturers coming forward to give a proper range for the bus, which has been one of the concern now. The e-buses are going to be operated for more than 300, 350 kilometers, even 400 kilometers also. Buses are coming up. So that's a good sign for public transport buses. The reason is that the intercity buses provide little more money than the city buses. So they get cross-subsidized. All the public transport bodies will operate more of intercity buses so that the city buses can be operated also. The private operators, all those 12 lakh buses on the road are intercity buses. None of them will operate one bus within the city. But the way it looks like from past 2 years, post-COVID, public transport, bus transport importance has increased, and e-buses introduction, again, target group is the public transit bodies, that STUs in the country. So the focus is back on STUs and public transport, official public transport bodies in India. So hopefully the buses will start increasing, e-buses will start increasing, they'll start replacing the existing diesel buses, and hopefully we'll have much more of better connectivity overall, especially in the cities. If you observe from past few years, definitely the cities are having, buses, cities with buses are increasing. Within past 10, 12 months, almost 3 or 4 cities have acquired some buses. So the way it looks like, cities will have more number of buses, and hopefully they'll be run well. They'll at least have a sustainable public transport. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm told we are running a little bit late, so maybe I'll just invite Harpreet to reflect a bit more on, can you think of some more specific, because you've been working, looking up some cities in India also, what kind of strategies you're suggesting for making it more gender friendly?
One thing which I missed out previously saying was looking at the walking and the cycling data. I think we have in India, I could not find much of the data which is related to the walking, people who walk. No, census is there, but that, the recent things which are happening now and how people are changing and why people are not cycling, why people are not walking and taking Uber and Ola even to the nearest distances. So we worked on another green paper which was related to walking and cycling, and it is not in India, even in European countries the data is not being published openly, and not municipalities are not sharing it with the general public to understand the issues with the walking and cycling, that sector of the society, to plan the transport strategies, keeping them in view. So the only thing which I have to say here is linking public transport with the walking and cycling infrastructure. So like I was studying that in Pimpri Chindwad, there is like 60% of your transport budget has to go for walking and cycling infrastructure. So those kind of legislations have to come in place in order to look at all the sectors of the society.
Thank you. So Mr. Shri Prakash, you heard also.
Yeah,
your last concluding remarks.
That's right. Thank you very much. In fact, we had a very interesting discussion about the public transportation and particularly a lot of things have been talked about. And uh, while thanking the distinguished panelist and Professor Geetam Tiwari, and of course all the people who are there, and then they could not get the opportunity to ask the questions, because of the because of the shortage of time, that. But of course, you will have the opportunity to talk to them while having tea. And one thing which I would like to mention, which the integration of the transport services integrated authority that have been mentioned by Mr. Pasi. We talk normally about generally about the urban travel, intra-urban travel, but one travel, the short distance travel, between the two cities, and they say from a smaller city to a bigger city is also very important. And that also is normally taken by the buses, and the number of buses provided for that services is also very low. And as the figures have been shown in the presentation by Sharif, the railways are just not interested in the short distance travel. And something we have to do about how to increase the bus services between a smaller city and the shorter city, and particularly again when the cities are very near. Say, for example, Mr. Pasi mentioned about Gurgaon to Noida, and then how to connect the Faridabad to Gurgaon, with buses, etc. This is also very important. And again, I would like to thank the panelists as well as all the people who are present here, and then in fact made this event quite successful, quite a good success. Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you. Are there anything? We don't have time for questions, right?
3 questions probably.
Okay. Okay, so let's take up a few questions. We have few questions for some people have. When is Volvo launching a double-decker bus? Should I just give you the second question also? How do you feel about the OEMs to allow bus segments to, what is it? To mobilize their own four-wheeler segment when intermodal shifts are getting promoted? I don't know what is. Can you read it? Or whoever asked this question, if the person is still here.
Rahul Chakraborty from TERI.
Okay. Cannibal.
I think in every business, every segment is based on its own business model. So I don't think that's a thought which runs into anybody's mind. But it's not like that with every manufacturer. Leaving one or two, others are all specific like us. As Volvo Eicher, we do everything which runs on a commercial vehicle, trucks or buses, or maybe construction, but nothing to do with the four-wheelers from that point of view. So it doesn't cannibalize. But yes, I think maybe the government looks at it like that because car brings in a lot of revenue every time you register a car, and someone brought that up. So there's heavy addition of cars, but I don't want to get into the context of what should work and what should not. That's the end of the day. If we can give last mile connectivity efficiently to people, it doesn't matter what mode of transport it is. Coming to the question on double deckers, I think I can just mention that there are a few big cities only in the world where double-decker population is the highest. It used to be in Mumbai about 50 years back, I'm told. I was not born then. I think it was even before, just after independence of that. So at this moment, London, Singapore, Hong Kong have the largest double-decker population. And in all these three places, more than 50% of the population is Volvo double-decker buses. So I think Volvo has a very good double-decker solution. However, in India, it's a great thing to have. And again, we were talking about standardization. So this takes us away from that debate with the new model. But on the other hand, I think whichever city we go to, greenery also rightfully is being pushed. So we do not, as a natural system, have this discipline in the cities where on the roads, the tree branches are cut regularly. So a double decker, because of the electric lines we have, and because of the tree branches we have, will not be able to run all over. So there is a big exercise required. Looks like a very small problem, but I can promise you that it's a very big problem. And that is the reason that cities like Mumbai over the years went away from double decker to single deckers, and now they're trying to come back to the same. I can leave it at that.
Yeah, there is actually another issue with double deckers, because you have to go up and down, so it takes a longer time. If you are going for long trips, then it is attractive. But generally, bus trips happen to be shorter than train or metro trips. Then people like to, you have seen a lot of people just stand because they want to get off very quickly. So only people who are doing long trips will go upstairs and sit comfortably and wait for their stop to come.
And
so that's the other issue also.
Yes, and that's why Singapore, Hong Kong, London, they have a problem with land space.
Yeah.
And that is by per force they have to go for double deckers.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they will also choose the other options.
The two buses can be coupled.
Sorry?
Coupling.
Coupling.
I mean, one bus.
Yeah, that should be very successful in India. I can tell you from the Volvo city of Gothenburg, there are 180 18-meter long full electric low floor buses running in the city.
Yeah.
And that's not the most populated city in the world. It's a 5 lakh people. So I think that can do very well, especially for peak hour traffic. You talked of BRT. If you have a BRT, that becomes a natural model to go into.
Yes. But another generation, yes. We do have some more quick questions. Maybe anyone can, maybe I would invite you to answer, or Harpreet, or both of you. So this one is saying that according to a study conducted by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, 64% people said long waiting commute hours, unreliable service is one of the reasons why citizens are concerned about public transport. So what can be done to deal with this issue? So anyone can answer. I mean, I think many things you already talked about, how to improve the performance, many things to be done. But if you want to highlight a couple of things.
One aspect of public transport, I think the reliability is the most important issue, and getting information on the service, like you mentioned, if there is a stoppage, or maybe there is some untoward incident which has happened on the way, how do we get that real-time information? So maybe reliability of information and reliability of service would be two things on which most of the public transport should now veer around. Maybe like it could be in near future, it may not happen. We could try those places where we have a robust public system. We could try it on one particular mode. We could try it on maybe conjoining two public transport modes and test if the commuters give a positive response to it, and then try to roll it out into further modes.
I would like to add one point here. So regarding reliability, right now what I am seeing is many schools have launched this Safe Bus app. So I am able to track my son's bus, where it has reached, when it started from school, and where it is stuck. So that can be a solution to, for this reliability issue of the public transport, because they have GPS enabled in the buses. So
I think I can just add a second to that, because that's what I was thinking when she was talking.
Yeah.
So as Aisha, we have one of the largest school bus percentage, 26% of Indian school bus market. And every bus has an Aisha app.
Yeah.
Where you can see how the driver is driving. Is the fuel being stolen or not, for example? Sorry for that. Is there a problem in the bus? Should he stop now or should he stop later? There are cameras in the bus to see, is anybody misbehaving with children, or are children fighting with each other, or is the conductor in the right conduct when he's dealing with school children? So all those things are already available. And that's where I was talking about islands of success.
Yeah.
We have islands of success, so a number of things happening in different places. We just need to bring them together.
And the only thing I would like to add is this is all about providing good information. But reliability is really, as a parent, I want to know when the bus is arriving. And that reliability comes by giving it dedicated right of way. That's what happens in metro. Okay, so maybe one last question. What are the pre-initiatives taken by the government to reduce carbon emissions in suburbs in view of sustainable development? Suburbs? In India?
In India, I would say switching to e-mobility for the next few years. Like you have this blue mobility cabs launched now, and with every ride, you know how many percentage, what percentage of carbon emission you have saved by doing that one ride. So these kind of things need to be expanded all over the city or India as a whole. But my point is that only e-mobility is not the solution. So it has to be catered with along with the cycling, walking, and public infrastructure, which should be interlinked with each other in order to reduce the to reach the net zero carbon emission norms by 2030.
Most important. So I don't have any concluding remarks. I think everybody has talked about it. So you can close.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the esteemed panelists. Also, I would like to extend my great thank yous to the partner organization, European Union, and our beloved audience as well for the great questions that they have asked. May I now request Professor Tiwari to kindly present a small token of appreciation to all the panelists?
Yes.
Thank you.
Even though my wife forgot to pick her up. And what happened is that and she was sleeping in the bus. So DTC bus. So she went to the workshop, and the conductor of driver came again.
Give it to. Okay, let's start from this end.
Can we have a loud round of applause, please?
Thank you. How will you take it? Yeah.
Yes, you can.
I would request Mr. Shri Prakash to kindly hand over gesture to our great moderator, Ms. Tiwari. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Sharif, can you please come and give the gesture to Shri Prakash, sir, please? Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm so
I'm sure we're all doing a lot of little things.
Thank you all for joining us today for this session. We would also have another round of great sessions and thematics around IHC. Please go have a look. I hope you are tagging us on the social media site. Our official hashtags are hashtag Act for Earth and hashtag WSDS 2023. Thank you so much and have a good evening.